Welcome to Trending Update USA. I am Steffan, and tonight we dive into one of the most significant power shifts unfolding in modern tennis, a development shaking the foundations of how Grand Slam tournaments operate, how players negotiate their rights, and how professional tennis may soon be governed. The tension has been simmering for years, but now it has reached a boiling point, and it is the chairman of the ATP, Andrea Gaudenzi, who has stepped forward to openly address the widening rift between governing bodies just as top stars like Coco Gauff, Jannik Sinner, and Iga Świątek amplify their demands for transformative slam reforms. This is a story not just about disputes and negotiations, but about a generation of players challenging structures that have remained unchanged for decades, raising questions about fairness, transparency, and the future of the sport they love. Gaudenzi's rare candidness has taken the tennis world by surprise. Usually diplomatic, usually calm, and usually careful in his wording, he has now acknowledged that a major divide exists between the ATP leadership and the organizers of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments, a divide that he says comes down to outdated governance models, revenue disparities, and a lack of representation for the athletes who make these events possible. His comments come at a time when the players, particularly the younger generation, are uniting in ways never seen before. Coco Gauff, the reigning US Open champion, has become one of the most vocal advocates for systemic change. She has long expressed frustration about how slam-level decisions are made without players having meaningful input, and now her voice is resonating across the locker rooms. Jannik Sinner, the calm, precise force from Italy, has echoed her sentiments, while Iga Świątek, never one to shy away from speaking truth to power, has become an anchor in this growing movement. These are not just star players. They are leaders of a youth-driven revolution calling for expanded prize money distribution, safer match scheduling, stronger mental health protocols, and a more democratic structure within the sport's most profitable events. As Gaudenzi began to elaborate in his recent interview, the governance rift is not a sudden development but the product of decades of imbalance. The Grand Slams operate mostly independently, each with its own board, own revenue model, and its own decision-making system. Meanwhile, the ATP and WTA represent the interests of the players and operate the tours that make up the majority of the tennis calendar. While the slams generate the largest global audience and the biggest prize pools, the players have long argued that the distribution of those earnings remains uneven and that they deserve a more significant share. Gaudenzi's admission that communication between the ATP and Slam leadership has become strained exposes just how serious the issue has become. According to him, the lack of collaborative decision-making is holding the sport back from unity and modernization at a time when fans and players expect more transparency, more fairness, and more innovation. Coco Gauff has emerged as a leading voice in the campaign for equitable treatment. Known for her maturity beyond her years, she has spoken frequently about how scheduling at slams often puts players at risk, with late-night matches stretching into the early hours of the morning and minimal recovery time between rounds. Gauff argues that the sport needs mandatory limits, more consistent protocols, and a stronger emphasis on athlete health. Her commentary gained new momentum when she shared that top players have formed private discussions and collective proposals to present to slam organizers. Meanwhile, Jannik Sinner has voiced concerns about prize money distribution, emphasizing that while top stars earn well, lower-ranked players struggle to cover travel expenses, coaching support, and physiotherapy, expenses essential to maintaining a professional career. Sinner's call for a more humane financial structure resonates deeply within the locker rooms and has reignited a long-standing debate about revenue sharing. Iga Świątek, on the other hand, has taken the conversation into the realm of mental health. As someone who has openly discussed the psychological demands of being world number one, Swiatek has repeatedly urged the slams to implement better support systems, reduce media pressure, and establish more predictable scheduling. She has also warned that the current structure leaves players feeling unheard and undervalued. Her voice carries weight, not just because of her status, but because of her reputation for thoughtful, measured advocacy. Together, these 3 players, Gauff, Sinner, and Swiatek, have steered the movement from scattered frustration to organized reform. Gaudenzi's admission comes at a time when many tennis insiders say the sport is at a crossroads. He acknowledges the Slam's remarkable global reach and cultural significance, but he insists that their governance model needs to evolve. He pointed out that in other major sports, athletes have far more influence in decision-making bodies, whether through unions, councils, or direct representation. Yet in tennis, players often feel that their concerns are heard politely but rarely acted upon. Gaudenzi believes the only way forward is a unified global governance structure, one where the tours and slams collaborate consistently rather than operating in separate silos. He emphasized that the sport cannot continue relying on models designed for a different era, arguing that modernization is not only beneficial but necessary. The ongoing disputes have also raised the question of financial transparency. Players have repeatedly asked for a more detailed breakdown of slam revenues, including broadcasting rights, sponsorship deals, and ticket sales. Their argument is simple: if they generate the performances that fuel these profits, they deserve to know where the money goes and how much they are entitled to. Several agents and coaches have supported this demand, calling it a basic feature of modern sports economies. Gaudenzi himself admitted that revenue transparency is an issue that keeps resurfacing, and he urged the slams to be more open in their financial reporting. Gauff, Sinner, and Swiatek have all publicly backed this call, saying it is essential for trust, fairness, and long-term stability. Beyond the financial and structural concerns, there is also a philosophical shift taking place. Today's players are more educated, more connected, and more willing to challenge authority than previous generations. Social media has given them direct communication channels with millions of fans, reducing their reliance on traditional sports structures. This new landscape has emboldened them to speak up, advocate, and demand the kind of changes they believe will protect the next generation of players. Gaudenzi says he welcomes this evolution, but he stresses that without collaborative structures, these conversations will continue to lead to tension rather than progress. He stated that the sport risks fragmentation if its governing bodies do not align soon. Meanwhile, slam organizers have offered carefully worded responses, emphasizing that they value player input while also needing to consider the interests of fans, broadcasters, and venue logistics. But these explanations have not fully satisfied the rising wave of player activism. Many within the tennis community believe that the slams wield too much power, deciding rules, match formats, and tournament schedules largely on their own. This imbalance, combined with the sport's complicated governance web, has created what Gaudenzi describes as structural friction, a term that has captured the attention of analysts and journalists. As the story continues to develop, the central question becomes whether the sport is ready for a true revolution. Are the slams willing to share more power? Are the players prepared to form a unified association capable of negotiating collectively? And where does the ATP, under Gaudenzi's leadership, fit into this fast-evolving landscape? The answer remains unclear, but what is undeniable is that the voices of Coco Gauff, Jannik Sinner, and Iga Świątek are becoming too influential to ignore. They are no longer rising stars. They are the architects of tennis's next era. They are pushing for reforms that could reshape the sport for decades to come. And with Gaudenzi now openly acknowledging the governance rift, the tennis world is watching closely to see whether this moment becomes a turning point. Tonight's developments mark more than just a public admission or a political shift. They represent a movement rooted in fairness, transparency, and the belief that tennis can evolve into a more equitable global sport. Whether that evolution happens smoothly or through conflict remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the players have found their voice, and the conversation has changed forever. This is Trending Update USA. I am Steffan, and this story is far from over.